Dragon Ball Legends has a long history, spanning 7 years. And in 7 years, things are bound to change, like battle systems, summon animations, and even animation quality. But one thing that has changed over the 7 years more than anything is the meta. And in this video, I want to explore the history of the meta, going over some of the most important chapters in its history. I want to discover fan favorite metas, some of the most hated metas, and really get into what makes a good meta. And at the end, I'll give the blueprint to the perfect meta in Dragon Ball Legends. Let's go. Okay, wait. Before we start, there's a lot of different teams in this game. Way too many to include them all in this video without making it 2 hours long. So I'll be summarizing a little bit along the way. We're going to separate each section of this video by eras, and we're going to start off with the early meta. The meta during the first year of this game. Just simple. No tackling, quick attacks, ground battles, or any of that nonsense. I'm just kidding, I love all those mechanics. Don't kill me, Toshi. But that doesn't mean it was a bad thing. As a starting point for the game, it was honestly pretty fun. In the earlier stages of the game, you saw a lot of heroes and extremes being used in PvP, which is extremely rare nowadays, mostly because there weren't many sparkings in the game yet. Although, as the year went on, the roster would expand significantly with key releases like Super Saiyan Gogeta, Bardock, and Broly, which would form one of the most iconic teams in the game's history, the Holy Trinity. If you don't know how they worked, I'll explain. By subbing out Bardock constantly for his SSJ crit buff, you were able to get off some pretty crazy damage. And this works because Gogeta and Broly are obviously both Super Saiyan. And at the time they were both very powerful on their own, so now you add 2 powerful units plus extra crit buffs and you have one of the most toxic early metas in the game. I'd be a fool not to mention the addition of LFs, which, as you should know, are typically more powerful than regular sparkings. And I don't want to dwell on the first year too long, so here are some of the teams that defined the meta. Regen, using tanky units like Green Boo, who really wreaked havoc on the meta. Sun Family, a timeless tag which used units like FSK Gohan pre-Zenkai and Nameku. And here's some other good teams from before the first anniversary. Oh, and about those LFs I was talking about earlier, they're coming into play big time pretty soon. But we're not there yet. While of course LFs were pretty dominant from the beginning, besides LF Beerus, things got to another level during the second anniversary year. We're not in a purely LF dominant meta just yet though, but we're getting there, and it's actually a good thing. Less LFs dominating the meta means you can have hype units like Vegito Blue and SSJ3 Goku running their respective metas, but there was also room for some regular SPs to shine. Sidebetter SP! Which were overall easier to pull and easier to get higher stars. I mean, there's a really cool team that only used SPs, GT. For basically the entire second year of the game, I think there was only SPs on the team, and it was honestly pretty decent. It really took off with the release of SSJ4 Goku, Vegeta, and Baby for Christmas, and which was basically like Legends Fest before Legends Fest. It was probably one of my favorite times to play the game ever. If I'm gonna be honest, that's where the teams that don't use LFs at all ends. During these years, almost every team had at least one good LF as a sort of anchor character, besides GT obviously, and other teams like androids and sagas from the movies I guess. But it was still a little better than today's meta where you mostly see teams that are mixes of ultras and LFs and maybe an SP as a support if they're good enough. While most teams in this era used LFs, you were still able to use regular SPs, which in my opinion is a great thing. Still having good sparking units circling the meta made it so much easier to build teams, because you only had to focus on pulling at most like one LF, which like I said are way more difficult to pull than regular sparking units. And don't even get me started on ultras. I think we've all had our fair share of bad experiences with those. And about the meta. For a while it was pretty balanced, with multiple teams having a time to shine. But that all changed when the VB Nation attacked.
Time to show you a thing or two!
Dead. Yep, he's dead. Look at this, man. But I think he's just too good for the meta right now. He's way too good for the meta.
And it's stupid early. This has been like 30 seconds. I got this rush in 30 seconds.
What? What? I'm sorry?
Yeah, this guy broke the meta. And it's the first time in the game where I think if you didn't have a specific unit, you just couldn't compete in the meta. He drew a ton of strikes, making for long, painful combos, and also insane rush farming. Like, I mean, he's getting rushes in the first combo of the match. VB was almost so good and long lasting that he got his own era, but he didn't, because something much worse released around this time, and it just needed a little more time to reach its full toxicity. That's right, I'm talking about the Zenkai era. Yeah man, I'm pretty sure a lot of you are familiar with Zenkais. You can either pay CC or grind an event for Zenkai Z power, and then you can use that Zenkai Z power to obviously Zenkai units. And with the Zenkai, they typically get stat buffs and adjustments to their kits, all with the goal to make them more relevant. But of course, power creep is a thing, and eventually these units are just not really usable anymore. So to circumvent that, Legends added something to their kit called a Zenkai ability, and it's basically a really powerful bench buff, allowing really old characters to be used even in today's meta. But that's not what made Zenkais toxic. I mean, they came out during the peak reign of VB, and I'm not gonna lie, they didn't really affect how good he was, with the best Zenkai in the game being Beerus. Also, him being God Key allowed him to be ran with VB in some pretty powerful teams. But still, Zenkais weren't entirely toxic yet, but that would all change with a certain rat getting his Zenkai.
Wait.
FSK. Now I know you guys are familiar with this unit. He's honestly the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of Dragon Ball Legends. Not because I liked him, but because I hated him. This unit and his teams of Sun Fam and hybrids ran the game, from his Zenkai all the way till past the 3rd anniversary. I honestly have no idea what was going on when they made this unit, but it had to have been some black magic ritual or something, because how do they make a unit in a gacha game like Legends that can dominate the meta for a year? And I'll be honest, I still hear his ult popping in my nightmares. His damage output comparably to the rest of the meta was honestly to this day one of the craziest things I've ever seen. The difference between his damage and his kit gapped the rest of the game. All of this mixed together to make him one of the most long-lasting and toxic units in the history of the game. And if we're being honest, this is probably when the whole Gohan Ball Legends thing started, because after this, the Gohan releases got much worse. But let's move on before I get PTSD. It's now time for the turn of the decade, the 2020s. And in my opinion, the most impactful unit released in 2020 was Ultra Gogeta. The very first summonable Ultra, because there were 3 mid free-to-play units that I'm not going to talk about in this video. Now, of course, there were elite units released before him, and sure, Gogeta wasn't as dominant as FSK was at his peak, but he was still dominant, being able to draw 2 ultimate cards, having pretty decent combo potential and great damage. But you may be asking, why am I putting so much emphasis on this one Gogeta? Well, it's because him being an Ultra opened up the floodgates to some of the most toxic and downright broken units in the history of the game. Because him being the first summonable Ultra in Dragon Ball Legends marked the Ultra era. While it started with Gogeta, it definitely didn't end with him, because the many Ultras that came out after him were almost even more toxic than he was. I mean, where do I start? There's so many, like SSBK Goku. Okay, maybe they weren't all as toxic as Gogeta, but still, almost every Ultra that came out after him has been at the top of the meta, and some have even been pretty toxic. One of the worst offenders being my GOAT Gogeta Blue. Where do I start? His blue hair, comp nickname, his animations, oh right, his kit. Well, he actually had a unique gauge, which was a mechanic introduced with Purple UI Goku for Legends Fest, and it's basically like an extra ability that uses the gauge in some way. There's some gauges that are downright toxic and others that are just mid, but UGB's I think was just right. It basically just allowed him to counter blasts and get other buffs. Not as broken as some of the other bullshit added later, and trust me, we'll talk about it when we get there. But for now, let's talk about Gogeta. While he was at his peak, another pretty strong, in my opinion, pretty toxic unit dropped. Ultra Goku Black. He was basically what people hate about Daima, but with aura. Oh, and he's God Key, which means he can team up with UGB. And those two, plus whatever throw-in you wanted to add, made pretty much the strongest team in the game at the time. But you can't forget other teams that included Beast Gohan and Pan.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
which were all sagas from the movies, which could also be paired with Gogeta. Oh, and there's also Hit. He was cool, I guess. Just didn't really have a strong team. And that takes us to the 5th anniversary, where Kid Buu, another strong unit from this time, would get knocked off the map. But we're not there just yet, because we still have to talk about Go Frieza and how ass they were. Yeah, this unit was just disappointing at release. So disappointing, in fact, that the devs did something they hadn't done in years. And you may be thinking, did they drop a plat? Zenkai even? No, they straight up just changed their kit to make them good. And not gonna lie, they maybe made them too good. Because to this day, people think they were better than Orange Piccolo and the Gammas? No, don't make me laugh. They were so mid I forgot they existed. No, I mean people thought they were better than Vegito Blue. And if you ask me, I think Vegito cleared them. I mean, look at what he did. His gauge filled really quickly and gave him ki and cards, leading to more rush farming. Sound familiar? Also, he probably had the hardest hitting ult in the game that had a new tap action that made it hit even harder. And speaking of tap action, someone else gets that. But before I get to him, we gotta talk about Rat-Han. I told you the Gohan releases got way worse after FSK. I mean, what could I say about this unit that hasn't been said? It's like they took OP mechanics from multiple units of the past and put them together to make this demon child. And to be real, he honestly wasn't as bad as the next guy I'm about to talk about, UG4. Listen, we all know UG4 was a demon. If you played during the 6th anniversary, which if you're watching this video, you probably did, you know just how toxic this unit was. He had basically an even stronger version of UGB's gauge, insane damage, and way more toxic parts to his kit than UGB ever did. But his reign as one of the top units in the game ended because Toshi couldn't get enough of releasing toxic cancer units to the game. Enter Majin Vegeta. Listen, if you were around the Legends community when this guy dropped, I think you'd know just how toxic he was, and you didn't even have to play the game. Another unique gauge that disrupted combos, elite damage, and AoE greens. Honestly, if you ask me, not too many units come close to this guy in Legends history for how toxic he was. But let's go a little ahead to the modern meta. As of recording this video, the 7th anniversary has passed, so we have units like UI Goku, Kaioken Goku, not Evo Vegeta, and the 2 Ultras that just released running around in PvP. And I didn't even really talk about Daima, honestly, because Daima is really toxic and most parts of it just wouldn't be incorporated in any sort of good meta. Oh, and speaking of that, it's time to get into the conclusion of this video. What makes a good meta? There are 3 keys to a perfect meta in my opinion. A mix of units that are easy to get and not easy to get. And what I mean by this is maybe incorporate more free-to-play units and summonable SPs into the meta while still leaving LFs and Ultras for whales. I mean, I can't even name the last time we had a free-to-play unit be actually viable in the meta. Number 2. Tone down toxic mechanics, mainly being paralyze, AoE green cards, and unfair combo disruption. And then finally, something I didn't really talk about was incorporating multiple teams in the meta. I think for a healthy meta, you want to have a lot of options. Don't strong arm your player base into using just one specific team. Allow for maybe 3 or 4 or even 5 different teams at a meta at a time. This would make many more team builds viable and allow for a more unique and fresh feeling PvP. And that's it. Well, that's the end of the video. This took me forever to edit, so if you liked it, please like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on what I should do next. Make sure to join my Discord too, because I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of dead in there and I want to revive it a little bit. But other than that, this is Shade. More videos coming soon, and I'll see you next time.